Hello, Ambush! Welcome to this week's episode of the Desert Tiger Podcast, here with me, Colton G. And on this episode of the DTP, I'm joined by R&B pop artist SAAKB. We're talking about his new single, Move Until You're Numb. With his dreamy, smooth voice, SAAKB drives to inspire and sweep you off to another plane, away from the distractions of the world, so you can focus on what is dear to your heart. Yes, and we're going to be talking about the progression of that voice from singing into a hairbrush microphone, watching MTV, some of the earliest memories SAAKB has of music, and we're going to go through his progression, his growth as an artist, what it was finally like to release music, how he has grown through releasing his music finally, and we're going to talk about all the fun stuff like, love and relationships and breakups and fighting through the tough moments and growing through them to become a better person. And yeah, we're going to get a little bit deep on today's episode. It's how we're going to do. We're going to talk to SAAKB about some of the relationships that he has built over his time as a musician, specifically the one he has with production duo Mixtape Soul, who not only was the beat crafters behind this latest single, Move Until You're Numb, they also did his first single. We're going to talk about a series of songs that he calls the First Four. What are their significance? And why were they released in the specific way that they were? And SAAKB happens to be another inquisitive soul, such as myself, so naturally he decides to pick my brain a little bit during today's conversation. So you guys get to dive a little bit into my thought processes and experiences here as well. All of this and more in today's episode of the Desert Tiger Podcast, and it's all brought to you by DesertTigerMerch.com, because that's where you go to copy yourself some sick DTP gear to rep it everywhere you go. DesertTigerMerch.com. This Thursday or Friday, we are going to be launching some new items. That's right, we have a new design, and it is printed on both some heather red and heather blue shirts. And they're going to be available for you this week. Keep your eyes peeled. And now with that being said, it is now time to spin SAAKB's latest track. So I hope that you, the ambush, are ready to move until you're numb.
Of autumn with all it brings. See the forest for the trees, and we'll blossom our love by spring. Afternoon daylight, cherish every minute of it. Am I right or wrong? Plans for tonight. Sit down in the shower and talk about life. We just might work up an appetite. Let the playlist play till the song you like comes on. Play till the song you like comes on. Sing along. Just close your eyes and dance with me. Move until you know. Close your eyes. Do what comes naturally. Move until you numb.
the Desert Tiger Podcast.
This is Colton. Is this, sorry if I pronounced this wrong, SAAKB?
It's pronounced SAAKB, actually.
SAAKB, okay.
S-A-A. Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It is a beautiful day where I am, so I have no complaints. How are you today, my friend?
I'm great, man. I'm also doing pretty great. It's a nice day outside. I'm sitting outside, enjoying my cold brew and some water, and just man, living life. All is well.
Hey, it's some days that's all you can ask for is just the opportunity to live life.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, fantastic. Well, we're coming together today to talk about your new single, Move Until You're Numb, and a little bit about your career. You ready to jump on into it?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right, fantastic. I love the energy. So, let's start off at the beginning, the progression here, because from what I can see, you only made the decision to really progress into music a few years ago. So, what are some of your earliest moments, memories of music, and what exactly was that moment a couple years ago that made you truly decide that this is something you wanted to pursue?
Well, I will say this. I've been making music my entire life. It's just a matter of putting it in public, you know? It's just a matter of when I decided to think that I'd like other people to hear this and possibly relate to it. And I've been making music since I was 4 years old. I remember standing in front of a television watching Michael Jackson and New Kids on the Block on MTV and wanting to mimic their every move. So this has been a lifelong pursuit of relating to people through music. And it's recently happened, you know? So I'm just blessed that I got the opportunity to make it this far in life to even have a conversation with you, Colton. This is kind of great.
Okay, hey, no, I'm very thankful for the opportunity as well. So, what exactly made you decide after years of creating and having the passion, but having sort of the reluctancy, maybe the fear to put your voice out into the world? What exactly inspired you to finally get over that hump?
There wasn't a moment. I'll say that. There was absolutely not a moment that there was no aha. It was always something I wanted to do, and it was about growth and maturity and getting to a point where I felt like I was, I had enough to say that I wanted other people to hear what I had to say. I had enough lived experience that I wanted to share that lived experience.
Okay, that's fair. You didn't want to rush into things and possibly put out something that misrepresented who you were as a human being.
I mean, who really knows who they are when they're 18 years old or 20 years old or even 25 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows who they are at any time in life? You know, I just think, the older you get, the more experience you have with life, and there's a certain level of maturity about why we're here that I think a lot of, at least myself, when I was younger, I didn't have that maturity.
Okay, no, that's fair, and I completely understand that as well. I kind of feel very much the same way.
I know this is more of an interview, but I'd like to just know more about you. I read some things online. I'd like to know who you are, like what your path has been, if you don't mind sharing.
Well, I absolutely have no problem in sharing. And yes, this is an interview, but this is also a place for conversation. So what can I answer for you?
So I know I've read that you're a referee for wrestling, but you're also in music. So how have you come to this point in life where you're interviewing, you're doing the refereeing, you're still dabbling in music a bit? Why does this exist? Why does Colton G's podcast exist?
Well, Colton G had an experience a few years ago where 8 years ago, I quit drinking alcohol, but 6 years ago, I still was like living very much of what I would say was a shell of myself. I had dreamed of doing like many of the things that I wanted to do that I'm doing right now. What a lot of people would say is their dreams or their goals. Like all of these things were still things that I was daydreaming at the age of 22 and at 24. And at 24, I almost lost my life. And for 2 weeks, I thought I was in a coma, and I was just sort of walking around, just once again living as a shell of myself, going through my PTSD. And as I sort of came out of that, I realized that I almost lost my life, having never actually pursued anything that I actually dreamed about or thought that I wanted to achieve. And I felt like that was a giant discredit to myself and the opportunity that I had to live. So I eventually began to do those things where I was a big fan of like the MTV. In Canada, we had Much Music, and like the video DJs that were on that sort of show where they constantly got to meet all these cool people and dive into the music, and they got to bring you deeper into the world of the music. And I always thought that was really cool and something that I wanted to do.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, those the Kurt Loaders of the world and the Sways. Yeah, those guys have always wanted to know more about the artist and the music, and it's a shame you don't see much of that anymore. You don't see a lot of people who really want to learn about the music and the process and the comfort of making art.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's it. But I also feel like in this time of social media, we're getting to a point where some people can start to see through a lot of the fakeness and the facades of a lot of what is going on, and they actually want to be able to connect to the person they're listening to. And I feel like this opportunity to give them that connection is finally starting to come back.
Well, thank you for doing it.
No worries at all. Is there anything else I can answer for you?
I mean, no, I mean, let's just continue having the conversation.
Fantastic. I definitely agree. So we're working through things for a while. At what point does Mixtape Soul work his way into your creative world, into your creative process when you begin working with that crew? Because they helped you with not only your first single, but also your latest single. So it seems like they've been a part of this journey. So what has that connection been like, and how did it begin?
So there's this great website. I'm not sure if you were familiar with it or if your audience is familiar with it, but it's called beatstars.com. So BeatStars is a platform similar to SoundCloud, but in a different way. It's more of connecting the artist with the producer. And now they offer a ton of other services to connect artists together. So Mixtape Soul is a group from, one of them is based in Seoul, Korea, and the other is based in Vancouver, Canada. And they must have met somehow, some way, years ago, and they've been making music together virtually ever since. And, I fell in love with their music online, and I was able to license it, and I reached out to these guys via Instagram, and they're super responsive and we're willing to collaborate and work. And I continue to build that relationship with them. And I love their music. And ever since I heard their music, the first thing I ever heard, I was inspired to write something. My first single was within the first 30 seconds of hearing Mixtape Soul's instrumental of it.
So they just happen to have that vibe that really connects with the artist within your heart.
100%. Yes. I like to listen to a lot of different artists, and especially a lot of newer artists or artists that are unknown. And again, BeatStars is one of those platforms that you could listen to so many producers and so many artists. And, once I came across Mixtape Soul, I just completely fell in love with their vibe. They are amazing, dope artists and songwriters, and I hope to continue working with them. They've been so gracious with me. They've sent me, beats that I say I like it, and they'll just send it to me. I don't have to license it or anything, and then we work out everything on the back end too. We work out how we split it, and we try to be as equitable as possible. And they're just great souls, great human beings.
So you guys just try and create a solid community sort of vibe between each other so that it benefits each other as much as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're humans, right? We got to connect with each other. So many times, man, you got people with blue check marks on Instagram who think they're better than everybody. And, if an artist reaches out to them, they're never going to look at it. They're never going to respond. Even if they look at it, right? I'll give you an example. I sent a demo to somebody who won't be named, but he's a signed artist with a major label, and it was with his beat. They're sending out demos for artists to write to, and I wrote something that I think is great to his beat. I sent it to him. He listened to it. I saw that he listened to it, but he didn't say anything. Like, so many times people think that they're above other people when really we're just trying to connect through music. I was inspired by that person's music. I decided to add to that inspiration, and people, when people want to do that, that should be facilitated. So a community should be facilitated in independent music. And, I'm trying to do that on the individual level, facilitate a community with different artists, different musicians, different people who are just trying to have their voice heard.
No, I understand that for sure, where we should be trying to build each other, and especially in the case if they're sending out a beat for the opportunity for it to have remixes done to it and for other people's creative voices to be applied to it, you would think that this individual, whoever it may be, would want to help these people or put in their input, especially if they've listened to it, that they'd want to at least be able to give you some advice or some feedback so that you can continue to grow from there.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm curious, because you have a very strong voice. At any point, did you take lessons for your vocals, or was this just from years of working on things on the back end and just practice? Practice mostly. I like to listen to a lot of music and then try to emulate the artists. And again, Michael Jackson, you can hear it. Everyone can hear it. He's been my biggest influence, and I grew up in his era where he was everywhere, so I just wanted to mimic everything that he did. I used to be a dancer, believe it or not. I cannot do that anymore, but I used to be able to dance, sing, do all that stuff. But I really focused and honed it on the voice because that was the most unique thing about him to me. Everyone can mimic his dancing and add their own variation to it, but the way he sang and his tone was something that I fell in love with, and I wanted to echo that. And it felt so deeply lost, at such a deep loss when he passed away, that voice will not be heard anymore. So it's really just about touching souls with that tone. And I kind of lost track of the initial question. Sorry, I tend to go on these rambling rants, and I'm not sure if it's beneficial to your podcast style. I can be more straight and narrow to the point if you want me to. Hey, I'm just gonna say, don't apologize. Continue to be yourself, because we are continuing to introduce people to more of who you are. So I want you to be honest with who you are. Please and thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
No worries, I like to ramble too, so if it happens, it happens. We'll find a way back on track somehow.
Sounds good. Good.
I'm sure the audience has gotten used to it over the last couple of years by now.
Possibly, yeah. I've never done a podcast before, by the way. You are the first one, so thank you for that. No, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you. I'm not sure if you can tell, by the way.
It's okay. Even some people who have done a ton of them still aren't the smoothest, or still do their own thing. And it's all about, I like the podcast format because we're not restricted by the TV format of, we're going to interview you for 15 minutes and then we're going to use maybe 4 minutes of the material. No, right. We're introducing you to who the person is so that you can get to know them. Like I said earlier, people these days want to know the people that they're listening to, who they're supporting and everything else, what their mindset is. And we're getting that here right now with you.
Cool, man.
All right, so moving on. In April 2nd, 2019, you finally release your first single onto the major streaming platforms after doing a couple of demos and covers and other things, prepping people to your voice, getting people ready for this music. Finally, Try comes out. What was it like to finally have your voice out in the world after years of just crafting and doing everything else on the back end and just working, and now finally it's here?
You really know how to build the hype, man. I will applaud you for that. You absolutely know how to build hype on that moment and that feeling. I have to say, it is not as exciting as you're about to make it sound. I put it out. I put it out, and I was honestly, it was the most incredible thing that happened was that people actually related to it, and that was the moment where I figured out, people actually want to hear this type of music and me relate to them in that moment. So I put it out, and people loved it. At one point, at the height of the promotion, when I was promoting it in South America, it was reaching about 3,000 streams a day, which is incredible to me. Like, I mean, that's nuts. That's like, it's not may not be 3,000 people, but it's like, half of that sitting there and listening to the song multiple times. And it's great perspective putting that song out,
No, and it's not always that the first single has that opportunity where not only does it catch a few people, but it catches them enough that they want to put it on repeat. Right.
Yeah. So it's, I still love that song. I wrote that song in, less than an hour. It's the song that's taken me the fastest, so to be able to write a song that quickly that resonates with so many people, it's just one of those moments, man. It's divine intervention for sure.
Absolutely. So later on in 2019, you begin to release what you call the first four.
Oh.
All My Love, Each Time, Wait by the Ocean, Across the Room. So these, from what I can see, are the first four songs that you wrote. So what was the decision to release all four of these sort of back to back to back to back on Fridays? And why weren't these released as the first singles? Did you feel Try just sort of introduced you better as an artist? Was there an actual decision behind this process, or is it just the way that things ended up happening?
I think Try was just a good song, like a really good song. I didn't think, and I still to this day, I listen back to the first four, and the first four are not the first song. The first four are not the first four songs that I ever wrote. They're the first ones that I thought were at least decent. Like, all right, there's a message here. The melody's good. I think people might like this. And I was sitting on those songs for about 2 years, and I didn't want to release them because I just didn't think they were good enough. I'm very self-critical and self-analytical. I'm this left brain, right brain person where my left brain is dominant, and it tends to influence the right brain a lot. So it could be detrimental at times where I'm over-analytical and I go on these ramblings like I'm doing right now. But the first four is I released it back to back to back because I just wanted to try a different strategy, right? As an independent artist, you're learning these things as you go. So at the time, other artists such as Russ were famously stressing the importance of constantly releasing music. So Russ is one of those artists who released a song every single week for a year, and then eventually he popped off. But I realized that type of brute force method of release doesn't really work with me, and it may not work with my type of music. It may work better with hip hop, where hip hop is more conscious. It's less melodically driven. So you can put out a song a week because you can record 5 songs a day. I can't really do that. I'm not nearly talented enough to record 5 pop R&B songs in a day. So I I wanted to try it. I was sitting on those songs for a long time, and then I finally did it, and I didn't put any promotion behind it because I didn't think they were very good, and they're just there. They're just like they're bonus tracks. You know, if people want to hear it, it's out there. I'm not going to stop them.
Well, it's always good to give people the opportunity to see your growth and everything else as well, because you want to inspire with your voice, and it's definitely one way to do so is to show people the growth process so that they too one day can maybe trust the process themselves.
I hope so, man. I don't know if there's even a single person that I've inspired to do that, but if there is, then my job is done. I don't need to do this anymore. Like, I don't need to keep releasing music if there's one person who heard and has seen my journey, and I'm no one right now, you know, and I may not be as more well-known as I currently am, and that's okay. But if there's one person in this entire 7 billion person planet who was inspired by something I've done, I'm good. I'm set for life. I've made an impact, and that's the important part, man. Is making an impact.
No, for sure, absolutely. I love the mindset, continuing to trying to bring a positive vibe forward into the world, trying to be the change you want to see within the world.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so let's move into 2020, where, I mean, things have been a little bit different. Your first single releases on January 3rd, where the world is still very much in a regular pace, we'll say, but by the time your latest two singles end up coming out, Pause This Moment on March 20th and Move Until You're Numb on August 14th, the world is in two very different locations. Mm-hmm. So what has it been like sort of traversing this territory that has been 2020?
I tend to be a bit risk averse, so I have been doing a lot of watching. I'm watching what my peers are doing. I'm seeing what the industry is doing, and I've decided to take it much slower than I was already taking it. I released By My Side, and the plan was to release By My Side, and then 2-3 songs, and then an EP. And then my life got turned upside down, and I started writing songs for like 3 or 4 or 5 songs a week with this group in New Jersey. And I'd rather not disclose who they are yet, but I've been writing songs with them for a very long time. To me, it seems like a very long time. It's starting in January and then up till now. And yeah, I mean, that response kind of sums it up, right? So much shit has happened in 2020. It's only been 9 months, you know, and it feels like it's been 3 years. So, you know, I've released 3 songs this year. Released as in I put it out on different platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, whatever. But I've written so many more. I've probably written like 30 songs this year. So it's like, and I've lived a lot of life. So 2020 has definitely been a roller coaster, dude.
Mm-hmm. No, it's definitely felt like it's been much, much longer than it actually has been, for sure. Almost like we kind of paused this moment, even though maybe we didn't want to in this way. So let's dive a little bit into Pause This Moment. Take us behind the scenes, what the song means to you.
That song is pretty special. I wrote it with one of my best friends, Jay Aaron, and he's I've known him for 15 years, and he's been a huge part of my musical journey as he's been on his musical journey. And, you know, I heard that instrumental again on BeatStars, and I fell in love with it. And I was going through a very rough time in my life, in my romantic relationship, and yeah, things just were turned upside down, and I was in my feelings, so to speak. And me and my friend, Aaron, we really, props to him. He's a brilliant songwriter, and he really helped me write this song and feel what I was feeling at the time.
So just trying to really put the voice of going through the possibility of a relationship ending and wondering just what's really going to become of everything that we've done and all that sort of fun stuff, we'll say.
Yeah, I mean, have you had relationships end on you?
Oh my goodness. A couple, we'll say. We'll say a couple.
Yeah. Have they been long? Have they been short? Has it hurt? Have you been in love?
I've definitely felt like I have been in love before, and most of my relationships have been short. I've only really ever had one long relationship that's been over a year, and I don't know, it's definitely a very interesting way of going through things, because you try to remember everything that's good that's happened, but at the same time, there's also just so much else that's happening otherwise that you just get swept up by it all.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You try to remember the good times, but sometimes, man, the bad times outweigh the good. You know, and you should focus on the bad times sometimes just to remind you of how rare the good times were.
That's a very good way of putting it. I really like that. That's
Cool.
No, it's something that sometimes people definitely do need to sit down and just think about. Yes, there are good moments, but over the course of things, how often were those good moments, and how current were those good moments, and do those good moments still continue into the present?
Are you familiar with Jordan B. Peterson?
Yes.
So I'm a huge fan of him. And one thing that has really resonated with me that I tend to go back to over and over and over again is that life is suffering. Like inherently life is suffering. And it's how you deal with that suffering. I don't know what the end of that sentence is. I mean, it is how you deal with the suffering. That is what life is.
No, it definitely is. I like to think that way too, where what defines us as people is how we conquer the things that try and conquer us, and how we move forward from negative moments, and how we continue to carry on and get stronger and grow from those experiences.
And have you felt with your relationships have ended, have you felt that type of growth?
I feel every time a relationship ends, it not only teaches me the things that I don't want going forward, but also some of the things that I do want going forward, which I do help feels me grow, and it also gives you the opportunity to maybe look through some of the opportunities where you yourself maybe haven't been the greatest person in the relationship, and also gives you the chance to grow and maybe be a better person going forward into your next relationship.
100%, man. Life is about growth, for sure.
No, I definitely agree. I'm glad that we can agree on that, where it's hardship can be a really good thing sometimes. Rock bottom is a good place to get back on your feet sometimes.
Absolutely. It's a kick in the ass, for sure.
I've noticed how to live without you, but I don't wanna go back down that road. You're fed up with my shit. I've heard you, but will you promise me, baby? Promise not to leave me. Spend the night, girl, I wanna fight. Let me cross the line, show I can live without you. I don't know if I can live without you. I don't know if I can live without you. I don't know if we pause this moment, I'll try to know your vulnerability. Try to swim through all of the tears in your eyes. Frozen in this moment in time, frightened by responsibility and all the things that you expect from me. We pause this moment. Frozen in this moment.
The Desert Tiger Podcast.
That it definitely can be. All right, let's switch up the vibe a little bit into the latest single, which it's a little bit more about relationships, but in a much more different light here. This song, Move Until You're Numb, from what I can see, it's inspired a little bit by the situation that we're living in right now, sort of breaking out of the monotony, the constant negativity that surrounds us. So, yourself, how did you get into the mindset of writing this song and breaking out of that negativity and crafting Move Until You're Numb?
Well, again, I heard the beat, and immediately a melody came to mind. The da 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 da. Like that melody is like, it's very similar to a Michael Jackson song that I don't want to say what song it is. That's for people who hear it to guess. But it's very similar in that regard. And I was just immediately inspired by just hearing that. And at the time, in my life, I was we were in quarantine. This was in early July, so just a couple of months ago. We were still in quarantine here in New Jersey, and I was spending most of my quarantine with the love of my life, and she and I would go through these dry spells where it's kind of life can get kind of scary, with everything that was happening in the news at the time. This is early July, and this is at the height of all of the protests, or the protests had just dialed down at that point, really, in America. Plus the coronavirus and all of these things, like it really, the unemployment rates, like everything, like life really, it was really hard to be excited about the future, So I wrote that song almost to myself, and not maybe to my girl as well, but mostly to myself, saying, hey, close your eyes, forget about the world, just dance, just enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that you're breathing and you're living and you're loving, and enjoy this moment. It's really hard to sometimes, given the state of the world, but, sometimes you got to shut it all out.
No, it's you can't constantly live in that situation, or else your brain starts to shut down, and then you're thinking in your fight or flight mode, and you're not thinking clearly, your body isn't producing and running as properly as it should be, and it's just sometimes you need to take that step away to just do what's best for you and appreciate some time to yourself.
100%. Do you do, I know you're, has the wrestling, has it resumed since the quarantine, or are you, I'm not sure where you're located. I was under the assumption that you're in like in the United States. Is that correct?
I'm actually in British Columbia, in Canada, so I'm right near Vancouver. I'm in what is known as Kamloops. So
Vancouver. Nardwar is from Vancouver, isn't he?
Yes, Nardwar is the bomb. Also, one of the people who inspired me to want to do this sort of thing.
I totally hear that, dude. I totally hear it. With your enthusiasm, I was thrown off guard for sure with your enthusiasm, and it immediately reminded me of Nardwar, man. So that's a great person to look up to. I love his stuff, and I love his character. Go ahead. I'm sorry. So you're from Vancouver?
Kamloops. So we're north of Vancouver about 4 hours. So Vancouver happens to have the majority of the cases. Like our area around like the beginning of July had like a decent breakout, but other than that, there's really only like a couple cases in our area a day. So there has been one company that has been running like very social distance shows where we're only letting in like 35 fans and everybody is spaced out according to their groups. Like you have to buy your seats in your groups beforehand so that we know how many chairs we're putting together, and everybody has to wear their masks during the show. They have to sanitize their hands when they come in. You can't try and like high five the wrestlers or anything of that sort. So with the fans, we're pretty distant, and then thankfully the building we're using, the locker room is big enough that we all sort of can find our own space to stretch out and do our own thing without being too close.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great. At least you guys are back at it, which is awesome. Has it gotten cold up in Vancouver yet, or no? Or in BC?
Thankfully, out here on the coast, it's a little bit warmer. So, like, the middle of Canada has definitely started to dip below zero and started to see cold. But, like, this week, we've been seeing still above, let's see, we work in Celsius in Canada. So that would be, like, 20 degrees something. So it'd probably be, like, somewhere around, like, 70s or something where you are.
Yeah, good weather.
Yeah.
Nice sunny weather, warm weather.
Yeah.
Oh, dope. That's great. Okay, So yeah, it's about the same here in Jersey as well. Oh, the reason I was asking is because, you know, right now it's still a little bit warmer out, but once it gets colder, it may be more difficult to do these things, to do these events. So I wasn't sure how your area was handling events. You know, I was thinking about coming up to that part of Canada at some point, and I always wanted to perform around that area. So I'm just trying to envision how far into the future I'll be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. So we just had an order where they just closed all the bars back down, but like some restaurants are still going, and like you can do like outdoors type shows, and it all really depends on the venue. So like 2021 is probably more of like things will probably open back up because they just closed the bars down just because they've been having a lot of party problems in our areas, so they're just trying to control that, put an axe on it right away just so that it doesn't get too out of hand.
Yeah, makes sense. It's tough, though. People want to live, man. People get cooped up.
Mm-hmm. No, especially during the summer season when for a few months everybody was inside their houses. It gets really nice out. Everyone wants to go out. They want to go camping. They want to celebrate and do their holiday stuff and all the fun things that they're used to doing before they have to possibly go back and shut back in for the winter.
Yeah, so I'm glad you guys are getting it out of the way now, for sure.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I agree too. It's thankfully, like I said, our area is under control and our shows haven't really been putting anybody at risk. So thankfully, we've been smart about things.
Great. That's the way to do it. You have to be smart. Social distance, wear a mask. Sanitize your hands, and just, you know, don't cough in somebody's face. Like that's probably the most important thing you can do is don't sneeze and cough in somebody's face. Just be sanitary. And if you happen to sneeze, go wash your hands. Like, this entire pandemic has taught everybody how to be properly hygienic.
It's kind of crazy how many people weren't being properly hygienic before.
It is. I agree, 100%.
Oh my goodness. All right. So I really want to know, so as an artist, once you finally start recording and releasing music, I want to know what the growth has been like through this recording process, say from the first 4 up until Move Until You're Numb? How do you feel that you've grown not only as an artist, but also as a human being through this process?
It's definitely taken away the allure of being an artist. I will say that. Like, I this entire time, for the last 7-8 years, I've had a full-time job. So I have a career completely separate from music, and the career has always been one side. It's my left brain being dominant, and then the music has always been the right side being dominant. So I've grown a lot over the years, and when I realized, I've always wanted to be an artist, but what I've realized is that sometimes, that is overrated. Like, living an artist's life is like the way you see celebrities live. I don't know if I want that. And that's what I've learned over the last year and a half is I don't know if I want to be some rock star who everyone knows and who can't live a normal life. I thought I did, but I mean, that shit kills you. So I want to live. I want to have grandchildren, great grandchildren. I don't want to die at 50 like Michael did.
And then constantly where Michael's children are still being put in tabloids and everything else. And did they even want that life?
No, of course not. They didn't get a choice, man. That's the fucked up part is that those kids, they've been dealing with this shit since they were born. Is it Michael's kids? Is it not? Like that bullshit. And then being around him and that entire thing where he did with where he held his son over the balcony, like he got a lot of shit for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids got a lot of shit for that. The kids have been dealing with it for their entire lives, and again, they didn't have a choice. They were born into it. So it's like I possibly have a choice where, I have the choice of whether or not I want to be a megastar, and I know I definitely do not want to be. I do not choose that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely keep things level-headed and understand where you want to be within the industry rather than being at the forefront and everybody's trying to vie for a piece of you.
I couldn't do it, man. There's 7 billion people on this planet. I can barely handle a couple hundred in my brain. I couldn't possibly have personal connections with 70 billion people, and if you get to a point, I don't know if that'll ever be the case anymore. In 2020, if we're ever going to have megastars like that, like I think like Drake, Weeknd, and maybe like a One Direction guy. Like those are the guys who are probably and Bieber, right? Those are people who are megastars.
Mm-hmm.
Ed Sheeran. Those are people that everyone knows and everyone wants a piece of. I don't know if 10 years from now that is going to be a thing. I hope not. I really hope not. But I know for sure that I don't want to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you even see with a lot of those people where it's not even what they want.
Yeah. I mean, with Justin Bieber, he was, 12, 11, when he got YouTube famous and Usher signed him?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was, what do you really know when you're 11 years old? Right? Michael was that old, too. He was 10 or 11 years old when he released his first single or something. He may have been even younger than that. He may have been 8 years old. But what 8-year-old wants to know, like, knows what they want to do for the rest of their life,
mm-hmm.
knows how they want to live? Nobody knows that at that young.
Well, and to have the responsibility of pretty much being the breadwinner in your household at the age of 12 and trying to balance that and trying to make sure that as a 12-year-old, how do you know who you can trust? How do you know that people aren't going to try and use you? And everything that has happened to a lot of these people who were in those situations.
Exactly, yeah. How are you supposed to know what a real human being is like? Mm-hmm. Like, everyone is so fake, especially when you're, like, important to their business and important to their money. Like, everyone is really, really fake. Mm-hmm. So how do you know what a genuine human being is, how someone is supposed to react? I don't know. It's tough. I'm glad I was never put in that position.
For sure. And then you get to the part of Michael after years of being, like, used and abused by the tabloids. How do you make friends after that? Like, to know, like, how do you put that level of trust into another human being?
Exactly. So I feel very blessed that I am as old as I am, and I've never had to be put in that position. I don't think I ever want to be.
Okay. Well, hopefully you still have the opportunity that your music can do amazing things for you, but doesn't put you in that sort of a situation for sure.
That's the goal, man. I want to live a Max Martin lifestyle where nobody really knows who Max Martin is, but he's made millions and millions of dollars off of the music that he's created.
Exactly. Find a way to make that balance in it so you can still live your life and get those experiences that you can put into your music later on.
100%.
All right. So you mentioned earlier that there was hopes of putting out an EP here in 2020, but of course plans have changed. So what exactly does the future look like? Has there been an album maybe put on the back burner for 2021 now, or what exactly does the future look like? What can you let us in on?
You know, I've had an album ready since I was 18 years old, and slowly I remove songs and then add songs, and then I remove songs and add songs, and I must have 20 different versions of an album by now, since I've been doing this for 15, 16 years. I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm going to release an album. I don't know if I'm going to release things on Spotify or Apple Music or, I'm not a major label artist. I'm an independent artist, and I have a relatively small fan base who I think likes my music. I'm just going to put it on a platform where they can appreciate it. I really love Bandcamp. I don't know are you familiar with Bandcamp?
Yes, I love Bandcamp.
Yeah, it's great, and it's, I'm thinking about pulling all of my music from DSPs, from Spotify, Apple Music, even YouTube, pulling all of it and putting it directly on Bandcamp. I think at that point, the music can be appreciated a bit more.
No, I can definitely understand that thought process for sure, and Bandcamp definitely has a much more musician-centric thought process behind them than a lot of the other DSPs do.
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to be a big fish in a huge, humongous ocean. When I put my music on DSPs, it's not a business model that works for any independent artist. Like, unless you go viral. And how many people go viral? How many people have hits, like songs that get millions of streams out of nowhere? That doesn't happen very often. If you look at the percentage of artists out there, there are so many artists today. Technology has made it incredibly easy to be an artist and to release music on Spotify. How many of those artists get millions of streams? Nobody, man. And 0.1%. And most of the time, by the time they release their next song, a major label has snatched them up and given them, whatever amount of money that they want to own them and own their rights. So, yeah, that's I want to move away from that. I don't want to cater to this corrupt music industry. I want to release music directly to fans, and if they want to pay for it, cool.
No, that's an interesting thought process, and you definitely see artists like the aforementioned Russ, and even where the opportunity with Drake having his contract coming up soon and him possibly moving into the independent sphere. There's a lot of musicians who are trying to take back control of the music industry because it hasn't benefited the musician in a very, very long time.
Think about Drake's contract, right? Drake is signed to Lil Wayne to Cash Money. Every time Drake releases a song, Lil Wayne is eating off of that song. He's eating off of Drake's career. And Lil Wayne was great. Lil Wayne had a great career of his own. But you see the pyramid scheme, don't you? Like, you see the pyramid scheme of established artists signing unestablished artists and then promoting them and then eating off of them for the rest of their lives. It's kind of sick, To me, it's just, that entire industry seems nasty to me. Now that I know how it works, I don't know if I want to play that game.
No, I understand how you mean. It's Lil Wayne is at the point where at the beginning of Drake's career, he would feature on a couple songs an album, and now he's at the point where he doesn't even have to record. And he still makes more money than he did probably when he himself signed his first record contract.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And I don't know if Drake's going to go independent. What does independent really mean for Drake at this point? Like, it'll be some sort of distribution deal.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, it'll be OVO signs a $50 million distribution deal, $100 million distribution deal with Warner Records or Republic. You know, Republic is where Drake is on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all that means. He's never going to go truly independent, where he has no major label backing whatsoever. That's not going to happen.
Well, exactly. And then it comes down to the OVO with what artists is he going to put on, and does the cycle continue from there?
Yeah, it's interesting with OVO, man. Like, I found it fascinating to know that Drake, up until this point, did not release music under OVO. He released it under Republic Records and Cash Money. Like, even to this day, for 12 years, he's been releasing music. He's been releasing it not under OVO, not under the brand that he built. So it makes me think, like, I feel bad for the guys like Majid Jordan and for Party. Like, these guys probably have 500 songs in their catalog, but they don't get a chance to release it. And that kind of sucks, you know? OVO is a better label, too. They're a better label than most indie labels. But even, like, Division just released an album. Like, how long has it been since Division released an album? It's been a very long time. So, I don't know. The industry is, again, it's dirty. The entire label owning people's copyrights structure, that shit is dirty to me. I don't want to partake.
No, I understand that completely, and the industry continues to shift and change, and we continue to learn and try and adapt with it.
Indeed.
All right, so before I ask my last question, where can the Ambush find out more about SAAKB?
I have a website now, but the website just redirects to a landing page for my music. It's my artist name. It's SAAKB, SAAKB.com. SAAKB.com. You'll find my music, my social medias. And eventually it'll lead you to a website where you can buy my music, because I'm taking my shit off of DSPs. I've already decided. So, SAAKB.com.
All right. Well, I will direct the Ambush to wherever they can find your music and support you best. All right, last question of our conversation. So, as an artist who spent a lot of time crafting music and sort of taking his time before presenting himself to the world, say there's another artist, and I mean, heck, this even applies to myself, who is maybe taking their time crafting their music, putting their voice out there, or maybe they're just afraid to put their voice out there. Someone who took their time getting to the point where he finally felt comfortable with putting out his reflection of himself. What would you say to this individual?
Keep going. Keep working. Get to a point where you are comfortable. Don't release something and try to be something before you're ready to be something. No, that's it.
All right, fair enough. Nice, sweet, and simple. I like it.
Thanks for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your music and your journey with me.
Likewise, man. Thank you for taking the time.
And thanks to you, the Ambush, for also taking the time for tuning into today's episode of the DTP. Today on the show, we played two of SAAKB's tracks for you. His latest single, Move Until You're Numb, kicked off the show, and in the middle of this episode, we played Pause This Moment. You can find both of these tracks, plus the rest of SAAKB's catalog, yes, on your favorite music streaming service, unless, of course, he actually does pull it all down and put it on Bandcamp. As of right now, that hasn't happened. So hurry to your favorite music streaming service, and you might as well, maybe purchase it just in case he does just happen to put it on Bandcamp. Support good art, It's a good thing to do. So with that being said, it's about time I gave one last roaring DTP thank you to SAAKB for joining me here on the show to tell us about his journey through the sand. And I need to go ahead and thank the person who brought this all together, and that is the wonderful Amanda from over at Vocab Communications. Alright, Ambush, we're getting close to the end of the episode, so here's a few things that you can do to help the DTP. If you haven't joined the Ambush yet, it's super easy. All you have to do is go ahead and hit subscribe on your favorite podcast listening service. Maybe it's the one you're using right now. You can also go ahead and review the show if that service happens to offer that option, like Stitcher or Apple Podcasts. 5 stars would help us out a lot. You can also share this episode. It's as simple as taking a screenshot, sharing that image, and tagging SAAKB, me Colton G, or the Desert Tiger Podcast. Of course, the other way you can help the show grow is by heading on over to deserttigermerch.com and copping yourself a little bit of DTP wear to rep everywhere you go in front of your friends, your family, and even your enemies. If you still see those people during a pandemic situation. Yeah, if that's a thing. Alright, this Friday on the show, we are joined by one of the members of Wide Mouth Mason, and we're going to be talking about the 20-year anniversary of their album Stew. And I can't wait for you to join us here when that all goes down on Friday. So, until then, you know what it is. I want you to put your paws in the sand and journey across the desert to find your desert oasis, your mountaintop, whatever it is that happens to make your heart scream and sing at its greatest capacity. Find the thing that makes you happy. And when you do, make the most of it and show the world your craft. Sing from across that mountaintop, across that oasis. Let your roar be heard, because it is beautiful, just like you. And until next week, bye-bye, you beautiful striped tiger cubs.